It's a big problem for Christians. It's a major source of shame in Christians. One of the reasons that many of us believe that America, the church, is in so much trouble is because of this problem. So many of our men who would be leaders are so burdened with guilt and shame because of this area that they're not achieving anything. Okay? It neutralizes you spiritually. It's a really bad problem. Destroys relationships, neutralizes you spiritually. It makes it, it causes sales of Viagra to go up and so forth. I mean, that's what it does. I mean, it does a lot of things, but none of them are very good. This is a very pernicious situation. Okay? High entropy is a bad thing. God designed sexuality to be highly ordered, and it needs to go somewhere. Sex is designed to communicate love. It's designed to communicate affection. And in order for it to do that, it needs people who are unhindered by this virus, by this disease, because that's what it does. It's a disease to intimacy. Okay? Okay. In Willard Harley's book, the thing I disagree with was he talks about the concept of the love bank. When, those different 5 needs that men and women have. As a woman, when you meet the top 5 needs of the guy, you put money into his love bank, and that's his affection for you. And that's how much he is attracted to you and how important you are to him. And likewise, when the man meets one of the 5 needs of the woman, he's putting credits into her love bank. And his value, the affection she has for him goes up. Now, I don't like the term love bank because love, from a biblical perspective, isn't based on what we do. Okay? It goes beyond that. So I don't like that word love bank. I prefer the affection bank because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about how much do I like you. Because love should be independent of that. If you really love somebody, that's commitment and so forth. Okay? But for affection, yes, that is very true. We contribute. Now, in a marriage, you're going to have deposits and you're going to have withdrawals. Okay? Hey, when you're living with somebody, there are going to be withdrawals. Toilet seat gets left up, okay? All right, there are going to be haircuts that don't go well. I mean, there are all kinds of things. There's sickness, there's complaining. You're going to have withdrawals, okay? See, in an affair and in pornography, there are no withdrawals, okay? You see, that's it. This is the cartoon. When people get accustomed to the porn world, you are focusing on a cartoon that's not real. It basically, you're poisoning your ability to experience intimacy. That's the problem. That's why it's bad for us. Okay? That's why God said, don't. All right. Now, all right. Now, I think I'm running low on time here. Are there any questions? I do have a lot of material, but I don't have the time to go into all of it. But hopefully I've given you got a general idea as to what the point is here. Are there any questions? Yes.
Does pornography combine with masturbation?
Usually combined with masturbation. Yeah, typically that's how it's used. Yeah, but even on its own, there is still stimulation. But most people combine it, though. Yeah. And, that's part of the pleasure reward. It leaves people very empty. And one of the problems is that, with prostitutes and adultery, there at least is some kind of relationship. And what happens is because pornography leaves people empty afterwards because there is no relationship, oftentimes they start getting involved in other forms of immoral behaviors. And they start doing friend finders, and they start seeking actual hookups. And then they move from a sin that is just between them and God, and now it's a sin that involves somebody else, and it's taken to the next level. But yeah, its addiction is because of the sexual component. Yeah.
At what age should you be watching the children regarding pornography, and how much, and what do you say to the children regarding this issue?
Well, that's a good question. At what age do you address the issue, or at what age? The thing is that you have to figure out, okay, is it possible for them to be exposed? I mean, for those of us who have cable television, certainly filters need to be in place so that we don't want them to accidentally come across this. when there is exposure, we do have to have that talk with them. And just like we have that talk about the birds and the bees, we need to talk about right and wrong with regard to pornography, so that they have our value system about this. When we give them a cell phone at some point, you put filters on. There are filters available for cell phones. You know, we can't stop what they see at school. And so that talk, I think that really varies as far as what age do we have that talk with them. It depends on the maturity of the child. You have some children, for example, who they're way behind with regard to maturity, and they're not ready at 9, whereas others are ready at 8. And some aren't ready until they get to be 12. It really depends on the child. But, you know, certainly that's a talk that we need to have. You know, we can't, you know, I think if you want, it's hard to get really good protection unless you decide to become Amish, in which case, you know, then you can protect them. But outside of moving out in the middle somewhere and not having a TV and not having internet and not having phone, it's very hard to keep that away from them. This is a very difficult time to raise kids because of that. Yeah.
Pornography leading to greater types of violent behavior, such as serial killers, child molestation. I mean, does it just like open the door? I've heard this before.
It does. Not in most people, it doesn't. And you take a look at the percentages, but the overwhelming majority of people, it certainly can lead into worse types of pornography, because it does become obsessive for many people, where they will spend hours and hours, and as they're doing that, their sexual scripts are being corrupted. So the number one victim is their own sexuality most of the time. But then you do have people that, like Bundy, for example, who are already sociopaths, and like Castro, okay? They're already a sociopath. And then as they get into pornography, they said, you know what? I deserve that life. I want that life. And real life doesn't offer it, so I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to dominate those women, and I'm going to get what I want. And they're using sex as a drug, because that thrill, because now it's not just I'm getting caught and being embarrassed. I could get caught and go to jail. So that enhances the thrill. That becomes, it's a drug addiction. They're going for the high. Yeah. Certainly, yes. If they lack empathy, yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, here and then here.
What would you say? I wanted to ask about.
Oh, wait. Here and then here. Okay.
What would you say to someone who's in a relationship where the other person doesn't want to get help for their porn addiction?
If they don't want to get help for their porn addiction, what do you say to somebody if you're in a relationship with them? Something that says, bye. It's a very serious problem. If they don't see it as a problem, I don't really like marriage counseling, because if people start fighting in my office, I'm like, okay, come on, I don't have time for this. But and with the counseling I have done, one thing I do know is that you must agree on morality. Okay, there's something called a triangle of responsibility. You give somebody, when you show affection to people, you trust them, and you give them freedom, okay? You don't manipulate them by lying and verbal abuse or physical abuse or threatening to abandon them. You don't compare them to other people. You give them freedom to be a grown-up. If they respond responsibly, and when they mess up, they apologize, okay? You have to see eye-to-eye morality to get that apology, though, okay? If they apologize, then you go back into an affectionate relationship, okay? And you give each other that freedom. But that's part of affection. If you keep behaving in an irresponsible fashion and you violate moral codes, affection goes away. So until that person sees this as a problem, it's one thing to do it and apologize and try to get help. But if they don't see it as a problem, the future of that relationship, the prognosis is so poor, I wouldn't even bother. Okay? It's extremely important. You need to agree on morality, because that is going to really hurt the relationship. It's hard to respect somebody if you don't agree with their morality. It is. It's very difficult. You had something?
Yes, I have observed so many people with the diagnosis of bipolar have extreme loss and loss. How do you deal
Okay, with bipolar people tend to be hypersexual when they're manic. That's something I have to deal with every week. I tell people when they're bipolar, please, you need somebody to help you when you're manic so that you stay away from social media. Don't do Facebook. Don't get on the internet because they say their business and they say things that are very inappropriate, including a lot of sexual things. And it goes all to your nieces and nephews and everything, and it's absolutely just devastating, okay? So there's a problem there. People who are bipolar, that's part of the malady, okay? And they tend to pursue pleasurable things, and that's part of the illness. And the treatment for that is they need medication to help with that area. So, I mean, it really depends on how they were before that, but this is a common problem with bipolar. If they have true bipolar disorder, this is common, and the solution is they really need their medication. That's the solution when they're in that particular state.
How do you see the church ministering to people with these problems?
How do I see the church ministering to people with which problem? With pornography or bipolar? With pornography? Well, programs like this are helpful to help understand that, look, the Bible isn't arbitrary when it says don't do this. When it talks about purity, it's like God is not, he doesn't promote purity to give us a downer. He promotes purity because he wants you to have fulfilling sexual relationships. He invented sex. Okay? God invented this stuff. All right? He knows how it's supposed to work. Don't put sand in your gas tank. It doesn't work that way, okay? And that's the thing. And I think that we can encourage one another. Another thing is that when you realize that you're not the only one that had the problem, this is a ubiquitous problem. I mean, when everybody's quiet about it and nobody pretends, I never had a problem, I never looked at a dirty picture my whole life. If everybody pretends that, then it stays in the dark. When it's just like whenever we have been through a struggle and come out on top, we can help other people. That's what the church does. Help other people who've been there. Okay. So I mean, I don't have a lot of time to go into everything, but that's in a nutshell. That's what the church does.